What times of the day are you eating because you're actually hungry, for example, and what times of the day are you eating because you're bored or something else?
There's probably more calories in that than the sushi or whatever
Yes.
you were planning on getting before. But we just think, oh, salad. It's a healthy option.
Most of your results, as far as numbers on the bar, scale weight going down, are going to be solved through the training and the nutrition. Most of your obstacles are going to come from mindset and lifestyle. All right, so part two. Yes.
So last episode, I think, was a good sort of, I don't know, how would you summarize what we spoke about in the last episode? I feel like it was a lot to do with the early mindset sort of stuff with fitness.
Yeah, I think I was more or less just making clear how I sort of almost philosophically view fitness, that every guy should be having a go and being invested.
Yeah, there's like a baseline level of
Yeah.
physical competence. I actually really like the way you framed that too, of that definition of physical competence. I really like that because
Yeah.
fitness, I think, can often be looked at as this, you're either, what do you call it, like a couch potato or hyper athlete. They're the two extremes.
Yeah.
But just that physical competence, that's a mad, I think, really simple frame to put that in, and it doesn't set the bar too high.
No, and it's good working with clients as well, because the industry is so big on looking a certain way or lifting X amount of kilos. And so it can be easy for people who have a coach to not really know any better. So when they're like, I really don't feel like I'm making... Like I had one guy recently who was like, I feel like I've fallen off the wagon. Shit hit the fan in his life. He just had a lot of hard stuff going on, and he was feeling really bad about himself. And I'm like, dude, you were like 6 kilos down with a history of yo-yoing and eating for comfort, and you are going through what is genuinely, he's telling me the details of what's going on. I'm like, genuinely, really intense period of life right now, and your weight is holding static. Like, you're not rebounding. You're still making good choices. You're still planning out meals. You're still being organized. You're showing up to the gym. You've missed like one session over the last 2 weeks. It's like, dude, you don't understand how much progress this is from a longevity perspective.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, damn. So I like that concept of physical competency, because it helps men. I apply it to women too, but it helps you see more results than just what's in the mirror and what's on the bar, which are both great. I think they're great motivators as well. But I want people to appreciate the other facets to the whole journey.
Yeah. Those things can't be the core of it, because it's not sustainable.
That's
what's
right.
on the bar, or what you look like in the mirror, because progress on those things, I think, would slow eventually at some point pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. And anyone I know who's been in the game long enough, even career bodybuilders, they develop this sort of romantic philosophy around bodybuilding, where it's like, man, you go through periods where, most bodybuilders after a show have rebounded more than they would like and sort of get fluffy. Some of them get really injured, and they're like, where's my identity? I can't train at the moment because of this horrible injury. Is all I am a body? Like, it takes you through this bigger journey. Yeah. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about a lifestyle around fitness in an age where you don't have to.
Yeah.
Because of the discipline component. Because once upon a time, you had to walk X amount of kilometers or whatever to get water. That's a long time ago. But you get my point. It's like, we don't have to move these days.
Yeah, and it's only getting more like that, right? You've got Ozempic and all these things coming through now, which is making it even...
Well, yeah.
I know there's a lot of caveats to that as well, but like, it's getting...
Yes, yeah. On the one hand, Ozempic can be legitimately super helpful, but like anything, it can be abused. Like TRT for men, I think if I hit 50-ish and I'm noticing my T is getting low, I'm like 90% certain I'll be getting on TRT. And probably in the next sort of 17 years, the way that the TRT available then will probably have less side effects.
Yeah.
And anyway, that is something that I think can benefit men's health, but it can also be abused. So what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to go into sort of the next step with fitness, and you've got sort of a 5-step sort of framework. And correct me if I'm getting this wrong, by the way, as well. But this is sort of your base sort of 5 things people can do straight away to start. And this is very, I think we should say at the start so we don't have to keep iterating.
Yeah.
This is very general. So This
Yeah.
is going to vary a lot depending on, I guess, maybe people's goals, whatever their circumstances are, injuries, shit
That's
like
right.
that. But this is very top level, adapt it how you need to.
Yeah, so my focus for today is to give people a really practical, like, get your notepad and pen out, really practical way of getting started with fitness and sticking with it. But making it that, like, simplified enough that it's actionable for most people means it's inherently very generalized. So it will, for most people, if applied, it will get you some progress.
Yep.
But I want everyone to understand the big reason coaches exist and AI really isn't interfering too much yet is because there is a lot of nuance person to person. But I still want to help people get from doing nothing or inconsistent to something. So that's the goal for today.
Okay, Matt. So I guess let's hit straight into the
Yep.
to the sort of first points then. Your framework. So your whole framework, I guess, is based off these 4 kind of key pillars. Is that so? These 4 pillars that you've got, does that sort of feed into each individual step that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah. So I'll begin by saying the 2 biggest issues I see with the fitness industry as far as beginners go, because that's sort of I guess my niche is beginners who've got no idea, or people who've been going to the gym for a while but are sort of self-taught. I still consider them in many ways beginners, and they're not really getting consistent, measurable results. The biggest issues that I see is the fitness and nutrition space is overly complicated for the beginner. On the one hand, meat is bad. On the other hand, veggies are bad. Like, people are just, you can find a camp that demonizes one food group and another camp that celebrates it as like the holy grail of good health.
Yeah, there's so much information out there.
And people get lost in that. And so that leads me to my second point, which is the second and probably biggest issue with the people that I like talking to is consistency. So my focus always is, how do I remove the noise and make things simple for this person so that they can act on it and be consistent? Because the vast majority of people are going to get, like, I'm going to pull a number out of my ass, but like at least 70% of your results from doing the simple stuff consistently. Like, really. So that's my passion all the time.
It makes me wonder why, let's say, for example, you've got these guys that are really pushing carnivore diet. That's really trendy right now, right? It's this really extreme thing. People probably struggle, if it's a massive lifestyle change, to stick to it consistently. Why do people jump on those things so hard and then they even though they might not see the results, they swear by it and they defend it so hard? But the basics work. And it's
there's always going to be the first part of the answer is it's nuanced. But I'll use an example from a guy I was working with recently. He didn't jump on carnivore, but he jumped on keto. So I was working with it was a really great experience for both of us, honestly. And yeah, I'll go into it really quick. So we'd worked together for about 10 weeks. And this guy was losing, once he got his momentum and got his sort of systems together, he was losing close to about 0.5 kilo a week on average, which for a relatively complete beginner who's always done sort of crash diets, this is a great place for this guy to be in. Yep. He was getting a little frustrated with, I want things to be moving faster. And I sort of guided him on how you could be doing it faster. And he's like, me and a friend want to do keto. And there is a point where when you're working with clients, you sort of have to let them do their own thing. How much of that was, did I not do a good enough job building trust? I don't know. But we had a really good conversation. He was great. He was like, yep, give me as much info on keto as you want. Honestly, I just want to try it. I want the experience. And you can coach me all the way through it and tell me I told you so, sort of thing. And so he did it. And within the first 2 weeks, his weight, he dropped, I think, around like 2 kilos or something. I had to explain a big chunk of that is water, because now you're glycogen depleted. And he was like, yep, cool, that's fine, that makes sense. But the weight was coming off a little bit more consistently, a little bit faster for the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks. And he was asking, like, why is this happening faster than before? And I sort of went into the science of it and explained why keto was working. And like, in part to answer your question, a big reason that people jump onto these things is because you can get very quick results. So if someone's overweight and they go carnivore, for example, maybe they're overweight plus other health conditions. is it the carnivore diet specifically that has improved their health, or is it because carnivore, like keto, narrows your food optionality so much, right?
So there's less food options in there that you're more likely to binge on.
Yeah.
You're more satiated for longer. Yeah, okay.
So it's like there's optimal eating for health sort of up here. There's where this person was at, and carnivore is like better than what they were doing, so they're going to get some great results from that. It's not as good as they could be doing, but it's better than what they were doing. And so to finish my story real quick, this guy ended up, it was like earlier this week, I get a message, it's like close to week 4 of him doing this, and he goes, F this diet, I'm done. I'm so tired. I feel like I'm grumpy. I feel like shit. And I'm like, they're the keto symptoms, which is one of the massive reasons I really don't like keto for most people. And then the cherry on top was he did the maths, and he was like sort of accounting for the water weight. My average weight, like actual fat loss for the last few weeks, was still around 0.5 kilo a week.
Yeah. And now he's going to see that water weight probably come back,
which is fine. Yeah. But it was a great learning experience for him. It was a good learning experience for me to have a client sort of try something like that and to see the science of the issues with keto lived out in reality. But yeah, I use that as an example because that's what people do with carnivore and a lot of these sort of diets, and they conflate correlation with causation. So because the changes are made are correlated with positive outcomes, they're like, oh, it must be causative. It's like, it doesn't necessarily work like that, but understandably, people don't think that way. They just think, I have a problem, I've tried a solution, hey, I got the positive result that I wanted. And I'm guilty of that in other areas I'm not an expert in as well. So as always, long-winded answer, but that is why probably in the top 2 to 3 reasons why people get so fanatical about these things.
All right, 4 pillars. What are the 4 pillars that your whole framework here is based on?
Okay, so when I'm working with people, I go through training, nutrition, mindset, and lifestyle.
Yep.
So an oversimplified way of looking at this is most of your results as far as numbers on the bar, scale weight going down, the typical kind of big meaty goals that people have when they're trying to work on their fitness are going to be solved through the training and the nutrition. Mm-hmm. Most of your obstacles are going to come from mindset and lifestyle. Not always. There are issues in the gym and with food and but even a lot of the issues with gym and food relate back to mindset and lifestyle. So they're sort of the 4 pillars that I operate from. So the goal is we want to create a structured, I guess, weekly plan of how you're going to train, be in the gym, be more physically active, how you're going to eat. So we want to make actionable changes in those 2 realms. And then as you try and make the actionable changes, issues with mindset and lifestyle will come up. So mindset is like mental health, anxiety, limiting beliefs, all of those, so your values, attitudes. And the lifestyle would be like your sleep, your work routine, how much free time you have, your responsibilities to friends, family, spouse, kids, just the way you habitually live. So they're the 4 pillars I sort of go through, and usually there are elements in all 4 of those that you have to address to really get momentum going.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So training is the first one up here. I feel like with training, training is one I think that people kind of overcomplicate in a lot of ways right from the get-go, or they get the type of training wrong. Like, so for example, easy one that I always hear, like whether it's family talking about they want to lose more weight or whatever. So I've got to, start going for more runs or get in and doing more cardio. There's this whole really skewed view about how the training relates to the goal.
Yeah, because I swim in fitness circles, obviously so much, sometimes I am surprised at how many people still view cardio equals fat loss, because I feel like that's been talked about to death over the last 10 years, but it's great. It's like a relatively simple thing to sort of address. But yeah, that's a common one. Another issue when people are starting out is doing too much and being like, all right, I want to, and it's so human and it's so understandable. I want to see a change quickly. The more I put in, the more I get out. So I'm going to do a 5-6 day, this usually probably happens more with men, 5-6 day training split.
Yep.
And then there are issues with that as well.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, training. What are the foundations then? What are the key things that people need to think about when they're trying to structure their first training plan? What should it look like?
Okay. The way I look at training for a complete beginner. So again, I'll stick with two types of people. One, we've got the person who's doing nothing and they haven't even started. And two is the person who is doing something and not really getting the result that they want. The second one's a little bit more nuanced. I'll quickly start there, then I'll go back to the true beginner sort of guy. To the person who's in the gym not really seeing a result, I usually start with questions around consistency. Because sometimes people are like, I've got a 5-day split, bro. And it's like, cool. When was the last week you did 5 sessions? Oh, well, last week I only got there twice because I had this going on. The week before I got there 3 times. The 2 weeks before that was 5. And I was so sore, like I could only do 3 for the week after. And so the first thing is like, okay, inconsistency. This is why I'm a big fan of logging training, because you want to be able to quantify your efforts and measure your sort of weekly progress. So often for that person, it's tidying up of things. A lot of people who dive in, I'm going to do 5 sessions a week, and they're not getting results. Often these people don't know how to train hard properly, which is a really common one. I see this in a lot of my beginner guys, even guys who say, oh yeah, I've been to the gym on and off before. I know how to train hard. And I watch them like stop their bicep curls and I'm like, dude, there was at least like 8 more reps in there.
Yeah, that's actually
really far from failure.
What when you say train hard, what does that mean?
Right. So this can be sort of tricky to explain to beginners, but the definition of, like, a simple definition is proximity to failure. It's like, how close are you to being unable to do any more reps? And yes, in the fitness circles, I always feel the need to go spiderweb with this, but there is sort of a nuanced discussion around what failure even is. Is it technical failure? Is it muscular failure? And anyway, but for the purposes of a beginner, it's you're unable to do another rep. So you get to your bicep curl and you get to like,
and you just can't.
And you just can't. You put it down. It's like, cool, you've reached failure. And so we know, look, if you can get within, for a beginner, shit, even if you're 5 reps away from failure, you're probably still going to get a good response. I like to aim for my complete beginners, depending on the exercise, between 2 and 4 reps from failure. Like, that's training hard. Most people don't know, especially with compound lifts, they don't know how to get to that level. So that's one of the most important things, is helping to teach people how to train hard. So quick beginner tip, I recommend if you're trying to learn how to get to failure or what that feels like, start with safe machine or isolation exercises. So your bicep curl, you got like a barbell, you get to here and you're like, you put it down, safe. When you fail a squat, it's like, damn, the only place I can go is down. And same with the bench press, and that gets scary. Machines are good. I like teaching failure with like rows or lat pull downs, because they're great. Like, you get halfway down, lat pull down. Even if you let it go, which you shouldn't do, but even if you just let it go and it smashes, like, no one gets hurt, you don't get hurt. Yeah, right. So that's a big thing. But for the complete couch potato, or the guy who's like just starting, I want to start real simple and try and narrow my focus here for a second. My little autistic brain. Start with, like, obviously anything's better than nothing, but I think 3 sessions is a great, real sweet spot for a beginner. Like, 1 session is better than none, obviously, but the progress can be so slow. And if you train on like a Monday, it's like 7 more days before you get to Monday again, and the motivation can be really low because it's not really interrupting your normal routine, and it's not disruptive enough to really cause much of a change. I like 3 because it can be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It's enough of an interruption that it's like, I'm actually changing my lifestyle, my habits. You're also getting 3 hours under your belt. So whether you do 3 days in a row as a push-pull leg split, which is great for beginners, or a 3 full body sessions, they're 2 of my favorites for 3 days per week for beginners. Go with something like that. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. I will say from the outset, I've put a link to what I call the Fit in 5 program, something that I've made. It's a 5-week program. It's probably overkill with information, but the link in the description is to the PDF that sort of walks you through the program. I walk through things like obviously how to use the program. There's videos in there on how to make a copy of the Google Sheet template that I've built, create your own program, how to do warm-ups, how to understand proximity to failure, how to progress week to week, gym etiquette. There's a nutrition and mindset series in there as well to explain the basics of nutrition. I've put a meal plan guide in there. Anyway, I've put a lot of shit in there. You will start to see my framework when you sort of go through that. So yeah, 3 days a week is really good because that helps beginners establish a new routine and sort of build momentum from there. But I would keep it real simple to start with and focus on showing up. 1 compound lift. So if you're doing legs, I'll shut up in a second. But if you're doing legs, you might do something like a squat or a leg press, and then leg curl, calf raise. It's only 3 exercises. That's still great for a newbie. Start with that. You can always add more salt, as I say, to cooking. You can always add more. You don't have to go overkill. All right. That's enough on training for a second.
No, I think that's a good thing. One point you mentioned in there is tracking progress. I've trained in the gym for probably 17, 18. I actually started consistently training. I didn't start tracking workouts until like the past couple of years, like actually logging what I'm doing in those sessions. That's a game changer. That for me helped so much because even seeing the weight or the rep range, increasing that little bit week on week, man, that makes a massive difference. Yeah. There you actually feel like you're starting to make progress. So that's one that I think a lot of people sort of overlook as well, just tracking what you're actually doing.
That actually, yeah. What I'll do for a second also to help people, you can jot this down. When I get a new client, I'm going to try and very quickly walk you through how I sort of progress a person from a complete beginner to making consistent weekly progress.
Yep.
It's like, number one, are they showing up? Like literally, are you actually showing up and doing your sessions? I don't give a shit about anything else until you're like, yeah, I showed up and I had to go. Great. The next one is technique. Obviously, I don't really mind for the first week or two if that person is anywhere close to failure, if we're still working on getting the basic. It doesn't have to be a perfect back squat, right?
Yeah.
It just has to be not complete dog shit.
Yeah, because then you're setting them up to removing or minimizing the risk of injury as much as possible too, right? Which helps with consistency and... Yeah,
there's an injury consideration. There's a consideration of getting the most from the movement.
Yep.
So if you've got a chest fall pattern in the squat where you hit the bottom and then you shoot your bum up and you lean over, it's like, cool, that's a great way to grow your glutes, lower back, and depending how egregious it is, possibly a bit of hamstrings. But your quads are like holiday. It's like you're there to grow your quads. So yeah, it's consistency, good form, and then it's teaching the person what approaching failure feels like. And I like with accessory work, so things like leg press, leg curl, leg extensions, if we're talking about legs, sort of those more controlled lifts. It's a bit easier to push them for a beginner closer to failure than like a squat, but it gives you some exposure to what hard training feels like. And you don't have to rush that process because, again, a beginner, even if they're not pushing that hard, they'll still get really sore. So I'm not in a rush because if I'm too hard on someone for the first 2 weeks, they get so sore they can barely train. So you just keep adding a little bit of weight. But yeah, it's good technique and then approaching failure. But I don't play with the reps or the sets too much. So I might have a beginner doing, I think 3 is a sweet spot. 3 sets for like a squat, bench press, 3 sets for your compound is a good place to start. Deadlift, even 1 or 2 you'll get away with. But start with lower volume sets. For a complete beginner, we might do like 7 to 10 reps because I think lighter weight, more reps gives the beginner more exposure to the movement pattern and helps ingrain it a bit quicker. But you don't need to keep adding lots of sets. Again, a beginner will make progress with relatively little volume. It's low-hanging fruit. Milk that. Enjoy it. Right? You want to show up to the gym fresh. So there's sort of my order of priorities. And then when someone is training consistently with good form, and I can see that the sets are hard, and we're monitoring progress, and then they stop making progress, then it's like, cool, now we can diagnose why you're not making progress. Yeah. So seriously, to all the viewers, like write that down. I'll go through it again because this honestly is the bread and butter of coaching progression. Consistency, good form, or at least passable form, learning to train relatively hard, tracking progress, And then you don't have to add sets or reps, really, for the first couple of weeks until progress really starts to slow down. Then you diagnose. And it could be that person still doesn't know how to train hard and they're holding themselves back. Could be sleep, could be food. But if we assume it's training, then you can look at, okay, I'm going to sprinkle some more volume in. If they're already doing 3 sets on their squat on their main day, you could push that to 4. I don't like doing more than 4 for a beginner. You could take their leg extension from 2 sets to 3. You just add an extra set. You don't have to add a set to everything. You might add 1 to 2 sets per week for that muscle group. And then monitor and see if that makes a difference. I bumped up their leg press by 1 set. Oh, next week their squat performance was better. Things are moving again. That 1 set made all the difference for the next fortnight. Perfect. Right? Guys, you do not need to rush. This is why tracking is important. If and when you stall, if you've been consistent, it's much easier to diagnose why we're not making progress rather than just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's how you get hurt. That's how I got hurt. Okay. So hopefully I've laid out a decent framework for that. Again, the Fit in 5, I believe from memory when I made it, it sort of goes through this progression and helps elucidate that a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, mad. Nutrition.
Yeah.
This is, I think, for me, the biggest sort of speed bump I always run into is the nutrition side of things. I feel like there's a lot of shit out there for training and stuff to actually do in the gym, but I feel like nutrition is even worse. There is just so much information. I don't know what the fuck to... look, I've gone through that phase of not knowing what to sort of jump onto. Now I've just gone, okay, what are the bare basics? What are the most objective things to do? And I think I'm okay with that, but sticking to things, nutrition's just the Wild West, I think. That's the part that I really struggle with the most. So I'm keen to get sort of your deep dive into this.
Okay, so nutrition, honestly, I view the same way as training. Doing this episode is actually really helpful for crystallizing, giving voice to how I think about these things. When I get a new person, I sort of view them as chaotic.
Yep.
Their nutrition is, they don't know what the hell they're doing. Their training, if it even exists, is I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Everything's sort of chaotic, and that's part of why it's hard to make progress, because it's all, right? So with nutrition, it's the exact same thing. I want to clean up their form, first and foremost, which is I have a full nutrition introductory module series that I give to my clients when they sign up.
Yep.
So what I do with my clients is go watch all these videos in the first week when they sign up, because it's going to teach you the basics of training, nutrition, mindset, lifestyle. I'm going to go through the foundational stuff I want you to know.
Yep.
And then I'm going to work with you one-to-one on how we apply that information to your life specifically. Because the number one thing with nutrition is a lot of people don't know how to look at food. They don't understand food. I had a great chat with one of my new clients. He signed up like 2 weeks ago. We were at a cafe yesterday chatting actually. And he was like, my wife made a quiche last night. And for the first time, I looked at it differently, because he's like, normally my brain would be like, okay, there's egg in this. Egg's pretty nutritious, which egg is. There's spring onion. There's all these different veggies and stuff my wife's put in here. It's really quite nutritious, and that's true. But when I go through nutrition with my beginners, I have a picture on one of my modules. It's like a Venn diagram where you've got 2 circles that intersect. And I've got quality and quantity. These are the 2 lenses to look at food through. So quality-wise, is that quiche, does that quiche have relatively good nutrients in it compared to a lot of other foods? Yeah, it's actually, there's a good amount of nutrients your body can use in that quiche. It's healthy in that respect. For an overweight guy trying to lose weight, the quantity side is the calorie load.
Yeah.
He's like, oh damn, there's egg, there's bacon, there's butter, there's pastry, there's cheese. And I teach my guys to count the calorie rich ingredients. And it's like, man, when you're getting beyond one hand, you're in trouble. It's like, damn, I didn't realize how much energy there was in the quiche.
Yeah, okay.
So one of my big first things, again, is just helping people look at food differently and understand it from when you're trying to lose weight and trying to build muscle, we're looking for high quality foods, high quality proteins, without adding all the extra quantity in terms of calories in there. Yeah. So pork belly is a really poor protein to try and get jacked on, because it's mostly fat.
Yeah. And our bodies are very good at processing fat versus we just store it, right?
Well, when you're in a calorie surplus. Yes.
It's sort of thermodynamics, right? Is the whole process of
Correct.
converting calories, right? The amount of people that don't know that that's a thing. So like, we were going out to get lunch the other day at work. We just walked up to the local shop and we were buying. They have like a salad bar thing. You just pick what you want. And one of the guys was talking about how it's such a healthier option because of this particular one. It had like a lot of avocado, all of this stuff in it. I'm like thinking, wow, okay, hang on. There's probably more calories in that than the sushi or whatever you were planning on getting before. But we just think, oh, salad, it's a healthy option.
Yeah.
Not understanding that concept of calories, what is the energy level of that food you're taking in. Most people don't know that. And
that's exactly why I started teaching this concept of quality and quantity. Because you see how that guy, he's like 50% right. He's looking at it from a quality perspective. Avocado, is it good for you? Nutritionally great. I mean, nuts are good for you as well. Cheese is actually pretty good for you, apart from, you could argue, saturated fat content. But cheese really is, your body's like happy with cheese. Yeah, exactly. So he wasn't conditioned to look at the quantity side of things.
Yeah.
So with the nutrition, it's very much like that. That is one of the best things at helping inform your food choices, is looking at quality and quantity, calorie layers, which is the counting. So your 3 macronutrients that make up your calories are protein, carbs, and fats. So really you're just looking at the ingredients in a food and going, what ingredients in here have protein, carbs, or fats? And the more you're sort of adding up, likely the more problematic the food is, at least as far as weight loss goes. And in this day and age in Western culture, if you're adding up that many things on one hand, it's probably problematic from a health perspective as well.
Is there a sort of blanket, very general sort of breakdown of how sort of the percentages of protein, carbs, fats you want to be hitting? Is there sort of a universal, is it 30%? Like, is there a way to break that down to very general?
It does vary person to person based on their goals, because most people don't have any concept of how many calories they need are. And so I don't want to give a blanket statement of like rough percentages, because it can vary so much. I think my focus for beginners, I mean, you could go with a 40 for a complete beginner, 40% protein, 30% fat, 30% carb of your total calorie intake is probably a sweet spot, like a fine place to start. There are people out there who would argue that for and against. I don't really give a shit. This is why I focus on cleaning up people's nutrition. Most people do not have enough high quality foods. They don't get enough veg. They don't get enough food. They have a lot of processed stuff. They don't get enough high quality protein. You've got tradies and guys out there who think, oh, a mincemeat pie is high protein. It isn't. Boys, it just isn't, okay? Subway's not too bad. Like a burrito from GYG, protein-wise, is probably a lot better, but a mince pie and a sausage roll are not high protein. Especially when you factor in the amount of fat that go with them. So what I like to do is, when I'm coaching my beginners, I try and give them, I'll give you the simple framework that I give with my guys. I will say, as I teach this framework, I also get my clients to keep a food log. And here's a great practical tip for anyone watching. Food log, here's the way you do it. You write down the time that you had something to eat and drink, and you write down the reason why. And do not at 12 p.m. write you had the sushi or whatever for lunch. Write down why you picked the sushi. Out of all the other takeout options or the meal you brought from home, you're like, I had a peanut butter sandwich. Why did you have a peanut butter sandwich as opposed to a Vegemite sandwich, ham and cheese, a wrap with chicken and salad on it, right? So you write down the time, what you ate and drank, and the reason, and really go into the reason. The reason that you do this is you want to know, when are you eating and drinking, and what times of the day are you eating because you're actually hungry, for example, and what times of the day are you eating because you're bored or something else.
That's a huge one.
Like you can.
That's massive. That's for me. I've noticed I tend to like binge eat or snack a lot more later at night, especially on the weekends. I find I tend to do that. I'm not hungry. I could have a massive dinner, be full, still get that urge to just eat.
Yeah.
And it's always just eat complete shit because it's something to do.
Yeah. And it's tasty and it feels good. And so this is another facet of nutrition. I don't know if we have time to go into today, but that might be another pod on its own, is part of the emotional, psychological element of nutrition. Yep. But when you're doing the log, so you understand the time, what you ate and drank, which helps for sort of identifying potential strategies that might work for you in making changes. But the reason is part of the psychological, emotional of understanding why you make the choices that you make. So if you're like, I have a really big issue with chocolate. So one woman I worked with a couple of years ago, she was coming home from work having half a block of chocolate and half a bag of chips every day. Why? Because at the time she really hated a job and she was depressed and she was upset and she had very low quality of life. And the junk food was one of the few things that she could do that really brought her some happy feels.
Yeah, right.
Right? So we had to sort of work through, how do we introduce new foods and new habits that make you feel good and improve your quality of life? Because part of your initial perception is, if I remove these foods, I reduce my quality of life. And that's a real issue with navigating nutrition. You can't just take that stuff away from someone cold turkey all the time, because now you've created a black hole, a void.
Yeah. That makes sense.
A whole other thing. But yeah, food log's great. Do that for at least 1 to 2 weeks and you will start to see more of your own pattern. And even from doing that, most people can diagnose for themselves. All right, I need to work on some stuff here. Then the next thing to do would be calorie counting, because that makes you far more aware of the relationship between quality and quantity. But the framework to help, like, what should I make my meals of? Here's what I recommend, blanket statement for most people. Let's say you're a dude trying to hit 150 grams of protein for your day. Start by planning your protein. If you plan, how am I going to get that protein in for my muscle building? I'm in the gym. I'm doing the 3 sessions like Ryan said. I have to hit 150 grams of protein. How do I do that? 30 grams at breakfast, 40 grams at lunch, 40 grams at dinner. Have 2 scoops of your average 30 gram protein shake, which will give you roughly another 40 to 45, maybe 50 grams, depending on the quality of protein. 30 plus 40 plus 40 plus 40, 150. Okay. Now, here's how you build out the day, how I like to build it out. Breakfast, most people are in a rush. So maybe you do 3 scoops of protein powder in the morning, 2 birds, 1 stone. You've had your protein shake, and that counts as your breakfast. Protein shake, 2 pieces of fruit. Quick, convenient, great start to the day. Protein shake and a YoPro. Your morning can be a couple of eggs. Even if there's a calorie issue there, starting out eggs, not too bad. Bag of jerky. That sounds weird for breakfast, but it's easy to have on the go, and you can get anywhere from 15 to 25 grams of protein depending on the bag. Just get 30 grams of protein in for breakfast and make it quick and easy for yourself. Lunch and dinner, I follow the same formula. Have around 150 grams of a lean protein. Chicken breast, turkey breast, white fish, lean cuts of red meat. Keep that shit simple. Have at least 2, if not up to 3, 4 different colors on your plate. Veggies. And then pair that with a moderate serve of a carbohydrate, right? So what's a simple way to package this? A stir fry. Chicken, you can have 3 to 4, even 5 veggies in your stir fry. Have it with some Hokkien noodles. White rice if you really want to. White rice is I love white rice. Brown rice might be a little bit better in terms of satiety. I do not like brown rice. So usually if I'm losing weight, I avoid rice because I can just eat heaps of it. It's great when I'm gaining. But you can see how that follows my framework. Try and avoid adding extra fat in there, right? Dinner, same sort of framework. That could be a bolognese sauce with extra veg. That could be a chili con carne. That could be a roast chicken, or a couple of really nicely cooked steaks, or some air fried barramundi fillets with veg on the side. Right. So that's a real simple framework that already we're cleaning up someone's nutritional quality. And it's relatively simple to follow. You just go, I focus on getting my protein, I pair that with a veg, and I throw a bit of carb on the side. Happy days. Roll with that for now. That's quality-wise better, and then you can always modify portion sizes or meal selection to get the calories down the road. Yeah. I have to try and not go too broad. This is a problem with generalizing. My brain goes so in-depth. I know I'm doing a lot of the talking again.
No, this is good. This is good because it's practical.
Yeah.
I like the idea of starting off with just doing the food log, because getting a good insight into why you're doing the thing, people overlook that. I think they just want to make the change.
Yeah.
So the first step, look at what you're doing without trying to change anything. Just look at what you're doing, figure out why, and then start making adjustments from there.
Yeah. The analogy I like to use, and quick tip, set an alarm on your phone in the evening, maybe to remind yourself. An alarm, not a reminder. Something that makes you actually have to physically pick up your phone and pay attention to it to turn it off. Because you're trying to break into the noise of your current routine. And if you're relying on memory to do a food log, you won't do it. So set an alarm, goes off at like 7:30 each night or something, and spend 5 minutes doing it and thank me later. It does make a difference. Now, the analogy that I like to use really quickly, I used to do swim teaching, and breaststroke kick is notoriously difficult to teach because all little kids' lives have been taught freestyle kicking and backstroke kicking, so kicking on their front and their back, and it's a flutter, pointing the toes, right? Breaststroke kick is dorsiflexing the feet, turning the feet out, and then pushing the water, not flicking the water. And so one issue you often get is one foot turns out, most kids are like this, and the other foot turns in and they kick. And the other one's got this pointed toe, like it's trying to do a freestyle kick with a breaststroke flip, like fashion. And when you're explaining to the kids, you're doing this with the foot, they can't feel it.
Yeah, right, okay.
They have no awareness. And so you got teachers, and I would watch them like almost screaming at kids, like, no, you're not pointing your foot out, like, no. And it's like the kid can't feel it. So I would spend as many lessons as it took getting the kid to, I would even hold the kid, sit them on my knee or sit them on the wall and get them to flex their foot. So they're, oh, that's what that shit feels like. Mm-hmm. And then they can feel, oh, right, I can feel now when my foot's doing this. It's like, cool, now we can work on it. Yeah, okay. Same with the nutrition, right? Don't worry about the choices you make for the first few weeks. Just be honest with yourself and just write them down. You can do the analysis later. Awareness is most important.
Lifestyle.
Yes.
Another one that I'm currently, I think out of these four sort of pillars, it's nutrition and lifestyle are the hardest ones for me. Because the schedule is a massive one. And I was just thinking about what you said at the beginning about making programs too hectic. I really enjoy training when I'm there. The resistance comes from actually getting into the gym. But I find that's what I'm currently doing now. I think I'm overloading things too much and trying to fit things into my schedule. So this also, very keen to hear your approach to this.
Yeah, this is a tricky one that, when it comes to training nutrition, I can see it so clearly for people. Then when it comes
this one I feel like it'd be pretty nuanced.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. But then when it comes to things in my life like making content, I forget that this rule applies. And the rule is you want to find your foot in the door to help create a low level of... you want to create consistency. So you want to set the bar a little bit lower at the start and just have a bit of a foundation, then add to it. And so that's what I try and do with the lifestyle. The lifestyle is diagnosing what elements in how you habitually live and operate can we use in our favor, and what things are getting in the way, and the things that are getting in the way, how modifiable are they? So you get people who say, I don't have a lot of time, and then you look at how they use their time, and it's like, you've got time.
Yeah, you're just prioritizing different things, right?
And people go, oh, I didn't realize how much I was actually wasting time. Some people are genuinely time poor. They've got long commutes to and from the city or something for work, and they don't really have many hours to deal with. It's like, okay, these people training might end up being a daily, 5 days a week, 30 minutes in the morning, like a shorter session, but you just sort of spread things out throughout the week. And when it comes to consuming my modules or extra content, even if we do catch up, like I do catch up calls and stuff with clients, it's like, let's use the commute. If you're on the train, watch the videos, fill in your food log, use that time for your goals. If you're in the car, we can jump on the phone, hands free, of course, and we can go through. So it's like using the time you do have. How many things can we stack into the time that's already being occupied? Yeah. That's a great strategy. I'm a big fan of getting couples to work as a team. You don't want one person making a lot of lifestyle health changes and the other person getting in the way.
Yeah.
So these are the things I mean by sort of lifestyle. Kids, if one of the things we're doing with dads to try and get them moving more is get more walks in. It's like, dude, take the kids out, walk them to the park, run around with them, kick the soccer ball. Like, you're ticking 2 boxes. You're spending time with the kids, teaching them skills, and you are also getting your activity levels up. So you can stack things. And again, all of these things when working with a beginner is cleaning up. It's like looking at someone's lifestyle and going, okay, how much of this can we do away with? How much can we make work in our favor? And then we just chip away at those things.
Yeah, I find something that I tend to do with this is I go, okay, I've mapped out my program for the week, and I actually kind of want to try not locking in my sessions to a specific day. I just want to go, these are the sessions that I'm planning to do, and I want to hit them at some point this week. Because what I find is, okay, I trained on Monday, I skipped Tuesday, fuck it, the rest of the week's a write-off now because the training's out of whack. I could skip this Tuesday session, but now it's going to mess with me. So like, I find I put so much emphasis on what the structure of the plan is that if I don't stick to it, I go, fuck it, I'll just put it off till next week.
Which is another reason or another problem with when beginners are like, cool, I'm going to make a 5-6 day week program. It's like you're sort of setting yourself up for failure. Start with 3, and again, learn what hard training is. Your muscles will be like, that was enough. That was enough. And that's much easier to fit in, especially if you sort of miss a day or like in the example I gave with a busy guy. I'll take a 3-day week program and just go, all right, day 1 is going to be broken up 30 minutes Monday, Tuesday.
Yep.
And just break it up in a different fashion. So the lifestyle is sort of very similar to the food in that what you might want to do, and ChatGPT is honestly great for this, is sit down and just do a dump of what does your week actually look like? What time are you waking up? What time are you going to bed? You get a lot of people who are like, I don't have enough time and I'm so tired. And it's like, yeah, but you're also like young guys with their games or there's a lot of reasons why, or watching TV, but people will stay up for hours, get 5 hours sleep because they were...
Yeah, doom scrolling or something. That's a massive one. I realized at the end of last year, my average screen time, a big chunk of this is work related because of what I do, but 40 hours a week of screen time.
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard
ridiculous.
In this day and age to not be on them.
And that's only phone. That's not how much I'm on the computer editing or anything like that. Pure phone.
People are consuming this on a screen.
Yeah.
Switch to Spotify if you're watching this. Which is another real issue. It's something I'm trying to, even though I have a majority online business, because that's part of me addressing my lifestyle issues being a single dad. Like, I need the flexibility, having my girls as much as I do, to not be tied down to in-person sessions. But I'm also trying to foster with my online guys, how much face-to-face interaction can we have? Because a lot of my online guys are local. So we try and do stuff face-to-face because it's so sorely needed. But yeah, just do a dump in ChatGPT and just because you can get some good feedback there, but just write down where all your time goes. Like I said, the sleep, because a lot of people stay up because they're, I'm very guilty of this, still a work in progress, but it's like consuming movies and gaming and other things and enjoying yourself, because so much of the hustle and grind is we're on autopilot, and it's like finally get some time to just soak up some dopamine, but then you sacrifice sleep. Now you're more tired, and so you're going to enjoy work and stuff less, which means you crave the distraction more, and the distraction is what makes you tired. I call that a coping pattern. It's a very downward spiral, and so going through people's lifestyle patterns helps expose these forms of sort of self-sabotage and ways that people trip over themselves and make their situation worse. Like with the woman earlier with the food who was having the chocolate and stuff to cope from work. It was like, I have to try and work with you to introduce new behaviors that make you feel good, that work in favor of your goals, not screwing you.
Yeah.
Which we eventually, which we got to. She's lost a good chunk of weight, and her quality of life is drastically different now. But that's the value of going through the lifestyle diagnosis.
Which ties nicely into the mindset stuff, I would think, right?
Yeah. And so the mindset, I'll try not to labor on this point too much. The mindset is probably the most fascinating part that I was not prepared for when I started coaching. yeah, I hope it's changed now in TAFE and like the PT courses, or definitely the courses that are made by researchers, scientists, and people who are very, very successful in the fitness industry, like leaders in the fitness sort of research evidence-based space. They're much bigger now on the psychological component, because it is probably the most important part of coaching, getting people to sort of change their behavior. And you run into a myriad of problems, and a lot of the problems don't even necessarily rear their heads until the person is confronted with, once they have clarity on the action they need to take. Because one of the first issues is people are just unclear on, I don't know what to do for the thing. And so a coach comes along, and as I've been saying this whole time, I try and clean things up and go, this is what we're going to do to move you forward, and I'm going to try and make it real sort of step-by-step simple. Now you just need to go and execute the plan. Yeah. And then they don't. That's when it really gets interesting, because it's like, you know what you need to do now. Now, why aren't we doing it? And that's where the limiting beliefs, the anxiety, occasionally the apathy, although apathy probably not as common as you'd think. There's a tremendous amount of self-doubt in men, a misunderstanding around what motivation is, a misalignment of values, attitudes, and beliefs in accordance with action. One of the biggest ones, the last one I'll quickly mention again, is the men in particular so often starved for love, intimacy, validation, excitement, and sort of satisfaction in life that they self-medicate with, again, gaming screens, drink, a whole host of different things. And it's very hard for men to give up any of those things or cut them down when it's like, that's one of the few things that I enjoy, and you're taking it away.
That, yeah, which I think ties well into the confidence episode we did, right?
Right.
Because all of those things, the validation, the sense of accomplishment, all of those things, I guess you turn to short-term, pleasurable things. You jump on a video game, get the dopamine release, social media, whatever. Putting the work in actually is going to lead to those feelings in a more long-lasting way as well, because they have more, I think, build-on effects. It's harder to take the first steps to do those things, but yeah, the motivation versus discipline is probably a good tie-in. So I guess if people haven't seen it, watch this episode. Go look at the confidence episode to talk about that a bit more. Yeah. Emotional barriers. What's keeping people from getting started? Another big one, I think. People really need to, I guess, analyze the why behind it, which goal setting is something you'll talk about in a little bit. But emotional barriers, I think, is a really difficult one for dudes especially, I think, guys especially, looking at that side of it. Because we're not wired that way, or not wired to tap into those things and analyze it very well, I don't think.
Yeah, I will say, because I still work with some women, I've worked with a number of women over the years, in many ways, women can make easier clients. Men often make... These are generalizations. Men can often make more passionate clients once they're going, but women can often be a lot easier from the start. And it might be, I haven't looked into this tremendously, so anyone with a clue can comment and fill me in. But it might be that women generally are more emotionally intelligent, or just, they can process that a bit more. Because I find that women are more ready and willing to take action, and they sort of know how to navigate their own self-doubt and things maybe a little bit more than the guys. The guys can often get really, really weighed down. And that might harken back to the whole discussion around the sexes, that men are often valued for what they provide and what they sort of do. And we're sort of keenly aware of that. So when you're a self-identified or self-perceived lower value man, it can be hard, because there's always that voice in your head being like, no, you recognize how low you are on the totem pole. You probably don't have what it takes to improve, to act. So yeah, it might just be because I'm a guy. It is interesting, but I noticed it is really interesting actually. Now that I think about it, the emotional weight on the guys This is why I take issue with people saying, "Oh, men, don't feel their emotions, whatever." They do. I just so many of them just need a little bit of encouragement. They really struggle with self-belief. That's probably that's been one of my biggest battles. And thinking about a lot of the boys I work with now, especially, yeah, it's like a little epiphany. The self-doubt is probably one of the biggest emotional barriers that men have to taking action.
Maybe we need to unpack that more in a future one, I think.
Yeah,
because there does seem like there's a big conversation around that. Yeah. Because I just feel like, I hate saying statements like this, but society is structured in a way that makes that stuff worse. It creates this sort of feedback loop of this because it's everywhere. I kind of have a bit more of my sort of views lean towards, I think we put too much emphasis on emotion in a lot of ways, but I think the way that we're pushed to deal with them is not right either. So there's a lot in that.
The pendulum can swing too far the other way. And it's rooted in, I think it's rooted in biology. I think it's rooted in reality in the sense that if you're a really emotionally vulnerable sort of guy, it will be harder for women to be attracted to you, I think, in general. There's an element of women's attraction is bound up in safety and why do women like the masculinity, like you look at women's, because women read their porn, like their sexual fantasies are around pirates and spies and vampires, and they're always charismatic. They're always confident.
There's a dangerous element to
it. But there's safety in that I'm on the side of the dangerous one, so I'm safe. And like I can get the sexual allure of that, I can get the attraction of that, and so it's men learn being vulnerable like that, especially around a woman, can equal less attraction. That's part of my divorce. I didn't appreciate that facet of women. I would do things differently now. This is why I'm such a massive fan of men having, I think for men to be in better relationships, I think they need to have better male friendships almost as a prerequisite, because you need the boys that can handle you being like, this is my raw emotion. So you don't put that, obviously men need to be and should be able to share emotion with women, but I think I think it can become a dependency, again, like it was in my case, and that's where it can become really scary and unattractive for the woman. I think you need to be able to go into that raw space with other men, because most of the time you don't really care if they're sexually attracted to you, but have them be able to sort of guide you through that so that you don't have to bring that home so much. So yeah,
there's a lot to talk about in that. I think
that's another one too.
Some thoughts on that, but I don't want to tangent.
Yeah. So yeah, 100%. Yeah, forget how much I know about my sphere until I really go into it. But that's sort of my framework for a beginner, which is why I made the Fit in 5 the way I made it, because it's very action oriented, getting you in the gym and understanding how to do the gym well, getting you to understand nutrition just a little bit differently and start making action, and then really just making men aware of the lifestyle and mindset factors at play, like with the breaststroke kick, great analogy, so you can become aware of your pros and cons in those areas. Most people, even just becoming generally aware, will start to be more solutions focused. All those things together, look, you may not drop a ton of weight really quick, you may not gain a ton of muscle and strength really quick, but you do this for a few months consistently, you'll be in a much better place. As I tell my guys, you'll have a better foundation, and then you can hit the gas more, learn more, then you get a coach or something and you can really get results faster. Just get started and focus on consistency. That's my number one. Just small and simple, get it consistent, and you can add to it. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, cool. So would you say you get those 4 pillars sort of set up, and then you would move into your actual goal setting? So you lay down those foundations to get a sense of where you're at and the why behind the things you're currently doing, and then that can lead to, okay, now these are the goals that I want to hit. How am I actually going to get there based on the position I'm in?
Yeah, I think it might be a little bit more like chicken and the egg situation. So if you can imagine like a diagram where we've got goal setting over here, and we've got training, nutrition, mindset, and lifestyle over here, and there's an arrow coming to and an arrow going from. There's no real start point.
Yeah, okay.
They feed into. Goal setting, I think we've discussed, will be another sort of episode to go into. But real quick crash course in goal setting. Again, honestly, it's another dose of awareness. I get guys who jump on a call with me, and they're like, I really want to lose some weight. I'm like, why? And they're like, when I was 15 kilos lighter, I felt better. Why'd you feel better? And like, you really peel back. We've talked about this in other things, in other pods, but you peel back the layers. And I encourage men, ChatGPT again is really, really great for this, digging deep. Just ask it to help you dig deeper and deeper and deeper to get to the emotional reason. When it comes to goal setting, understand the depth of why you care. Because if it's just, I want to lose a few kilos. When it comes to having the beer and the pizza on the Friday night, you're like, right now, I think I'm looking pretty good. I don't really care that much. It's easy to derail.
Yeah.
If it's, I want to lose weight so that I can see my dick again. A pretty good goal. And that relates to, I want to have better intimacy with my wife or my partner. I want to be able to run and not get gassed out. I want to look like I'm fit. I want to be the kind of man who is disciplined and consistent. And you can see that on my body. That stuff means so much more. And so if you're aware of that when it comes to the choice of, do I want to have the pizza or not? You're like, hold on, it's not just about losing weight. This is about being a role model for myself, for my friends, if you've got kids, like it becomes this bigger. So when you do goal setting, do not stop at just, I want to get bigger, leaner, lose some fat. I want to get healthier. What does healthy mean?
Yeah, find the why.
Why? Yeah. We'll do another full episode on that. We'll probably leave this one around about here soon. But that's sort of my crash course. Keep chewing on this stuff. The self-awareness makes a huge difference. Most people don't put enough work into really understanding the why.
No, this was great. Really good practical stuff in this. I've actually got a few little insights on this as well, which is good.
Good.
Yeah. What I'm finding through doing these, again, for me, what I find is just that information overload. It's really hard to filter out I think my understanding is nowhere near as advanced as yours, but it's a little bit above what the baseline average understanding of fitness, nutrition, that stuff. But it's very hard to filter through, okay, what is the shit that I should be giving my attention to?
Yeah.
Breaking it down like this just goes, okay, very simple layout. Here's the things I can or should focus on and the quick changes that I can make.
Did it feel like I had a structure? Because I can tangent so easily.
We're good at tangents. We are good at tangents, but they're relevant, so it's good.
Okay.
This was great. And the resource that you've linked to below, I had a look at it yesterday. There's a fucking lot in it. There's heaps in it, but it's I didn't feel like there's too much fluff. It's all very relevant and very helpful. So, another great one. Thanks, man.